Mr. Kip Sorensen, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man. Hope all's well.
Yeah. It was a good holiday. Spent time with the family. I mean, you can't complain. You
Let me
you
just
and your
make sure
son
here.
got
Hold on a
got
second.
some
Hold on
hunting
a
in.
second. Yeah, before we get to
Yeah.
that, hold on. I need to police this here real quick. Now, you
Okay.
didn't have more than 11 people over for Thanksgiving, did you?
I don't Thanksgiving. Oh, we didn't even celebrate because we're in lockdown.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I plead the
Yeah.
fifth. Isn't that what it is? I plead the fifth.
Yeah. What someone on Facebook said on the Facebook group. Join us on Facebook, by the way, facebook.com/group/orderman. A guy made a comment about jujitsu, and he's like, "Oh, are jujitsu gyms even open right now?" And then I replied was, "The first rule of COVID jujitsu is," and then just left it as that.
Yeah.
Like keep
Pete
that on the down low.
Pete calls it quarantine is what he calls it. It's the quarantine. Your gym's funny though, man. I'm not kidding. Like I saw a post on social media and I think it was your gym
Uh-oh.
and or somebody else's gym. I thought it was your guys's, and two guys were rolling with masks on. I'm like, come on, like let's stop the nonsense here.
That might
Just
just be
stop.
appease
Just
the
stop.
masses.
I
Just
don't care.
no.
You know what? That is a bitch ass move. Like there's no other way to say it. Stop trying to appease the masses. Stop trying to like pretend like these weird measures are effective.
Yeah.
Please, that wasn't your gym, was it? Please tell me
I
it
don't
wasn't.
think it. I don't
Okay.
know. I didn't see the picture. But
I saw it. I'm like, what the hell? Like these guys are sweating. They're bleeding on each other. When I was rolling the other day, the guy I was rolling with, Brody, my buddy, drop of sweat dropped off his nose or his forehead into my mouth. It's
Yeah.
like
But wear
we're
that
gonna
mask,
get, if
Ryan.
I got COVID,
No,
we're
but
all
you
gonna
gotta-
get COVID.
Yeah, you got to wear the mask though, so you don't get anyone sick.
I just thought maybe it was. I shouldn't have thrown your gym under the bus because maybe it wasn't. It probably wasn't.
I don't think it was.
I think the reason I said that is because one time I saw a sign on there at your gym when I went and trained, and it's like we're all gonna respect the masks or something, and I'm like, you realize what we do here, right? Like,
Is
and
way more
the thing
intimate than wearing a mask.
and the thing that just pisses me off is like, well, we could lose our business license. Well, if everybody just said F off, this is what we're doing,
Yeah,
then none of this would be an issue. And if you don't want to go train, don't train. If you don't want to go to the grocery store, do the Walmart pickup. All right? If you don't want to go into the convenience store, wherever it is you go, order everything on Amazon.
yeah.
Right? There's no reason for this. Anybody people say, "Oh, it's selfish not to wear a mask." It's selfish to say that you don't, or you feel like you should, or you don't,
Or
that you're
expect
more
everyone
important than
else.
everybody else.
Yeah, or expect everyone else to do something for your health. That's selfish. That's more selfish.
Just
You know what I
stay at
love?
home.
I had a proud American morning. I was on a call with a client with a resource out of France, and while we're waiting for everyone to get on the call, he was talking about the differences of cultures, and I was like so proud that he explained Americans this way, because I was like, you're totally right. But he was talking about, he's like, it's so different. He's like, in France, we look at the scenario with the pandemic and COVID-19 or whatever, and he's like, and the kind of the general impression, at least his perspective, is that like that's the government's responsibility, and they wait for the government to tell them what to do, and if there's a curfew, they do that. He's like, but you Americans, you're descendants of people that have this opinion of like, you're responsible for yourselves. That is not the government's job to do that for you, and that you do it on your own, and you take accountability for those things. And
Right.
he's like, and that's just the American culture. I'm like, hell yeah, it's American culture. and I think we failed to realize that. Like I've used this analogy. I think I shared this a while back, but I saw a post on Facebook. It's like, oh, it's almost like Americans would be willing to risk their life for the sake of freedom. And I'm like,
Oh, you
yeah,
think?
that's the idea.
Yeah.
Like our fabric as a country is based upon that concept. So
you think
and
about,
it's weird for the other parts of the world to see that, right? They don't understand.
it doesn't matter. You know, that's the funny thing is people
Yeah,
people
I
from
know.
France or Britain or whatever, they'll say, well, oh, you Americans are weird. We don't care what you think. I don't give a shit that you think we're weird. Which is actually probably the reason that over 250 years ago, my ancestors left England to get away from you. Because we don't give a shit about what you think. And we will take care of ourselves on our own. Like, that's my responsibility. I'm going to take care of myself and my own, and I'm going to assume that other people can do the same thing. I was listening to this podcast, Stephen Mansfield. He's been on the podcast a couple of times, 2 or 3 times now. And this was on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and he was talking about the first Thanksgiving story. And he was talking about these pilgrims coming from, I can't exactly remember where they came from, but coming to America in the early 1600s. And these people were not, I don't think they were fleeing as much as they just wanted to get away where there was no religious persecution.
Yeah,
So-
religious
and he-
freedom kind of. Yeah.
Right. So he talked about the story of the first Thanksgiving, and he talked about these initial pilgrims who came over to this new land, and they spent months and months on this ship to get to this country, and they dealt with just horrific situations over that period of time, and people were sick, and they left too late in the year, so it was winter, and it was just horrific. And then they got here, and they faced starvation and famine, and it was brutal. Like, why would any person in their right mind do that? We are descendants of the toughest, most badass rebels that the world has ever known. Like, they're willing to put it all on the line in order to secure their own way of life. And you're a descendant of that. And if you're an immigrant later on in American history, it's your responsibility to assimilate to that. That you came here because you thought there was more opportunity and prosperity here than wherever it is you came from. And that's wonderful. I have no problem with immigration as long as it's done legally. But it's your job to assimilate to us, not our job to assimilate to you. And our way of life is we do it our way. We believe in personal responsibility and individual liberty, and we believe in taking care of our own, and that we can do it better than any other entity out there. I can lead my family better than any other entity out there. I can run my business better than any other entity out there. So you just get the hell out of my way and let me do what I want to do, as long as it doesn't negatively impact or take advantage or manipulate other people. You let me do what it is I need to do to take care of myself and those under my care. You don't like it? Don't come to this country. Don't live here. But if you like that idea and you like that concept and you believe in individual liberty and personal sovereignty, man, this is the place for you.
Yeah. And it's alive and well. Even though it doesn't feel that way, I really believe it still is.
It is, but the vocal, I should say the silent minority, as it's called, it needs to become more vocal.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I've felt this way. It's like, I just want to be left alone. I just want to come up to here to Maine, and I just want to be left alone. I want to run my business. I just want to be left alone. I got 2 letters in the mail. This bugged me. 2 letters in the mail today. Both of them were from the Department of Workforce Services, or whatever the department is called in Utah, regarding my workers' compensation. Well, at the time, I was my only employee, so, like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. One letter says, you owe X amount of dollars because you made this much, and yada, 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 yada. The next letter I got was, you overpaid, and we're issuing you a refund.
From the same agency?
Same agency. 4 days late, 4 days apart.
Yeah.
This is the government in a nutshell. I can do this better for myself. You know what? Here's an idea. Get rid of the Department of Workforce Services. Let's level the playing field. You know, let's ensure that there's some labor laws. I see some of that being important. Let's ensure that there's equal opportunities for individuals and there's not a whole lot of discrimination going on. You know, like I see that. But these government entities are just so robust that they've just completely defeated their own purpose. I think it should just be, hey, Kip, do you want to work with me? And you say, yeah, sure. And I say, okay, I'll pay you this much. And you say, no, I want this much. And I'll say, well, I'm not willing to pay you that much. And you say, okay, well, I'll do it anyways. Or you say, well, I'm moving on.
Or I'll go to somewhere else.
And then we shake hands. And then when you come to me and you say, hey, Ryan, I don't want to do this anymore. I say, well, I really want you to. I'll pay you a little bit more. You can either say, yeah, sure, let's do it. Or you say, no, thanks. Or if I say, you know what, Kip, I really actually just don't like you. That's it. I don't like you. So you're not working here anymore. End of story. That's it. It's like, okay, I don't need any other explanation than that. I shouldn't, at least. So anyways, all kinds of tangents we can get off on here.
Oh man. Well,
just like
we could go for, we could go forever. Cause like whenever I hear like, oh, but they don't have a choice, right? Like, and it's like, yeah, you do have a choice. Don't work there.
Well,
like,
a lot of these
actually
people
go somewhere else.
Yes, look, I'm trying to see it from both perspectives, and you're right. And when I talk about these things, I generally fall into the camp of what you're talking about. Like they don't, like they have a choice. The opportunity is there, but I also understand there's things where people are underprivileged, or they don't have these opportunities, or they're in financial hardship, or there's some addiction, or mental illness. I get these things. And so people will say, well, what about these people? Like, shouldn't the government take care of them? No. You know who should take care of them? Their neighbors, their religious institutions, their families. I'm not saying those people shouldn't be taken care of. Like if one of my sons or my daughter was in a difficult spot financially, or not like it was hard because welcome to life, but like in a seriously difficult circumstance, I would take care of them. Oh, well, but right, what about the people that have families? Community. Oh, well, what if they don't have community? Well, okay, like at some point, they've got to exert some level of like trying. They've got to exert themselves to some degree.
Yep.
And I get so frustrated with this stuff. Because ultimately, here's the deal. I believe in the power of human beings. And I think there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in the power of human beings. I think a lot of people out there believe that humans are helpless and they're stupid and they're ignorant and they can't do it on their own and they can't make their own decisions. This is why every once in a while I'll post something about my wife staying at home, and she's been able to stay home, fortunately, and we're blessed. And I've worked hard. And so is she. We're blessed to be able to make that our reality, our situation. And people say, well, that's not everybody's situation. Well, it could be. I'm not any more special than you. I don't have the silver spoon. There's no inheritance. Like, there's no fund that I'm drawing upon that somebody bestowed upon me. There's no magical gift that I have that you don't have or have access to. So when people say, well, not everybody's situation like that, that's an excuse. Yeah, I know. Obviously, not everybody's situation is like that. But for the overwhelming majority of people, that's a decision. It's a series of collective decisions that you've made.
Yeah.
You bought a house that's too big. You've straddled yourself in debt. You've always bought into the idea that she needs to work. You've lived above your means. And so you force this situation where your wife has to work. And don't tell me that it's because it's just the way it is. No, it's because the way you made it. My wife and I, man, we lived on food storage, like green beans that she used to can and vegetables and top ramen. And she wasn't working. Man, if she went to work, and I saw my buddies, she was working $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month, and they had these big, beautiful homes and the fast cars and the big trucks and the boats and the toys. And guess what we had? Green beans from last year from our food storage. It's a choice. And more accurately, a collection of choices. And we made a lot of painful choices. And we ate a lot of green beans and rice and top ramen. And here we are. Don't tell me that, oh, well, you're just lucky, or oh, blah, blah, we can't do that. We're the same that way. I just did things a little differently over a period of time, and it worked out like this.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I was just going to say the situation is the same, and it's freedom.
Right.
The ability to actually like change your circumstance. That's the situation that's the same. I want to share a quick story because to illustrate what you were talking about earlier. Asia and I, we were serving the homeless like at a soup kitchen thing earlier in the week, and we were both kind of noticing. We're like, it's funny. Like, there's no Polynesians. There's no Polynesians in the line, right? And you're just kind of like
that's racist,
looking at
Kip.
who.
That's racist.
But there's no Polynesians, and so she made a post on Facebook about like how grateful she is for Polynesian culture, and about how they take care of their own, and her brother-in-law, he's Polynesian as well, and anyhow, someone shared the story of where they're watching like TV and they saw like a homeless person that was Polynesian, and his reply was, complete stranger, where's that person at? Let's go get him. Right? Like, it seems so odd to him. You're like, whoa, hold on. Why? Who's that person? Where are they at? Let's go get them. Not even a family member, but they're like, no, that's not acceptable. Right?
Exactly.
Because they took care of their, they take care of their own. They take care of their community. That's how it should be. Yeah.
I love it, man. I think the Latin community and Mexican community are very much the same way, actually. Very family oriented. We take care of our own. These people work hard. They believe in God. They take care of their families. They're obviously family oriented. And I'm like, exactly. That's exactly right. You take care of yourself. You take care of each other. And all of this other bullshit would be solved.
Yeah. Okay. How far are we in?
I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. Who knows? 20 minutes. It looks like about 20, maybe a little less than 20 minutes.
All right. So, shall we get into it? Facebook?
I guess we should get into it. It's not like
I don't know,
we've
man.
already got into it.
Roll. Man. Yeah, I was going to say, you're on a roll. We could drop some more mics.
We will. We'll get into some good questions, and I'm sure somebody will piss me off today, so we'll get into it.
All right. Well, there's some lighthearted ones in here, so we'll lighten it up and maybe a little bit. All right, Joshua Shoebridge. Yeah. All right, Joshua Shoebridge.
Hey, by the way, hold on. Okay. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Kip.
No worries.
Jay Geradulo, and I'm still butchering his name. He sent me a message. He's like, you butchered my name. And I'm like, I know. As soon as we got done having that conversation last week, I knew that we butchered that name. So anyways, Jay, we apologize.
Sorry, Jay.
We hope you forgive us.
Yes.
Or get an easier name like Smith. Jay, your new name is... Your name. What is his name? His name is like... What did we call him? Like Land Shark or something. Didn't we call him like that?
It was Muscle Shark. No. That was...
Muscle Horse.
Yeah, John
Gilliland was Muscle Shark, and Jay was like
He's Muscle Horse. Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yes. So Jay, you are now Muscle Horse. We can pronounce that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we should probably actually check your guys' photos before we slaughter your names, and then if you look like a pretty tough guy, then we'll take our time and like make sure that we pronounce it correctly.
I think you could take him. Kip, I think you could take Jay. Jay, you heard it here. Kip, I think you could take Jay.
Don't even start. Yeah.
No, I think you could, dude. I think you'd have no problem. In fact, weren't you talking shit about Jay right before we hit record on the podcast?
You know what, Jay? Come on. I'm over at Ryan's house. Why don't you come on over?
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes.
All right, let's go, man.
All right. Joshua Shoebridge, besides editing the podcast, which Ryan doesn't, by the way, Josh, do you have any other creative talents that we don't know about? I guess you used to edit the podcast back in the day, so that's a talent. What other talents you got, Mr. Mickler?
I have no talent whatsoever.
Oh, come on.
I can draw pretty well. I'm actually pretty artistic.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty artistic. I haven't drawn for a long time. But yeah, I can draw pretty well. That's about it. That's it. Everything else I've had to work my ass off for. Like, I'm pretty mediocre at everything else in life.
What would people say that you're good at? Because you're kind of a humble guy, so you may not say certain things. I'm assuming people tell you all the time that you're great at public speaking.
Sometimes when I say I'm humble, or like make a humble brag post, because that's honestly that's what it is, right?
Yeah. I'm so grateful that I'm so talented.
Yeah. My biggest weakness is that I have no weaknesses. People will say, "Oh, you're being too modest." Like, I'm not deliberately trying to be modest. I am legitimately average at the things that I am interested in, you know, whether it's hunting or jujitsu or podcasting or writing. I'm legitimately average. I'm not lying. I'm not trying to make myself appear more humble or gracious or whatever than I really am. I'm average, but I'm really good at the monotony. Like I'm good at the grind. Yeah. I'm just very good at saying, okay, I want to have success in this endeavor. And so I just go and show up and try to be as coachable as I can. Maybe coachability is a talent, I guess, maybe that I've been blessed with. I've always been a coachable person. If somebody says do it this way, I'm like, okay, like I don't question it. If they're obviously good at that thing, and I just do it. So I'm good at being coachable, and you know, along that same line is I'm very inquisitive. I guess that's maybe another talent too that people often overlook, is I'm curious about things and people and what makes them tick and why they do that a certain way. And so my son and I, and my two oldest sons and I were in Pennsylvania this last weekend for a hunt. A lot of you guys probably saw. My oldest son shot his first deer, which was awesome. And we brought it back and we gutted it out, and then we were starting to break the deer down, and one guy did it a certain way. And I've noticed that everybody who breaks down a deer, everybody does it differently. There isn't one universal method. I mean, ultimately it all gets done at kind of the same end result, but everybody just does it a little bit differently. And so this guy was breaking down this deer, and I'm like, well, why do you do it that way? And what about this? And what about that? So I've always been very, very inquisitive and curious about why people do things a certain way. And I think that's played at an advantage. And then I can, for whatever reason, I can just be monotonous. Like I can just do it and just be excited about doing it. I think that's something that I was just maybe instinctively or naturally blessed with, is you don't need to convince me. I don't need to ask a bunch of questions. You say jump, I say how high, and you say this, and then I do it. I'm like, okay, well, he knows what he's talking about, so just do it that way. And maybe that's a level of density or lack of creativity, but it's like, okay, well, sounds good. And then I just do it forever. And I think my wife would tell you that. When you ask the question, like, what do people say you're good at? My wife, in fact, would probably say that, as she would say that you're very good at, when you put your mind to something, game over. It's over. It's over. It's just a matter of time. Like, that's it. It's not, will this happen? It's like, when will this happen? That's it. What was this question about? Something about what other creative muscles?
Yeah, creative talents that we don't know about.
Creative talents?
I don't know. I have a video of you singing
in the shower. That's creepy.
Yeah,
is this
creepy.
a public?
I didn't take the video.
Is this a public video, or is this a private from your private collection?
Well, it's in my private collection now, but your wife posted it. It wasn't me.
I could think of way better videos that belong in your private collection than me naked in the shower singing the national anthem, I think is what it was.
It was the national anthem,
yeah. Yeah, I can draw. That's it. I can draw. My dad was a great artist. He was very creative. He could draw really well. The end.
There you go. Growed some mad beer too. I guess that's kind of creative.
That's actually the laziest thing that a man could ever do. People are like, how do you grow a beard? I'm like, you just be lazy. You stop shaving, and then it's there. It's the lowest bar of entry of anything that we could possibly talk about on this podcast. You literally do nothing. In fact, you stop doing things. Like, that's how lazy it is. You stop shaving. You stop worrying about it so much, and it just grows.
All right, Anthony Nolan Jr., how long did it take your business to grow to the point where it covered your expenses? Further, how long did it take for your business to become established enough to improve your financial situation beyond where you were before you started it? Thanks, guys. Love and appreciate the work you do. You inspire me to get off the hamster wheel and get my own business rolling. Been at it for a year and a half now.
Cool. Awesome. That was Anthony. Is that right? Did I catch that right?
Anthony.
Right?
Yep.
Anthony. It took me about a year and a half before I started making income. Very briefly, because I've talked about it. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I was about 7 or 8 months into the Order of Man thing. Actually, no, I was about 6 months now that I say that. And I was listening to a podcast, and my wife at the time had said something like, you know, you're taking a lot of time away from your financial planning practice, which is what I had at the time. And you're doing more of this Order of Man thing, which is good. You're happy. You seem excited about it. It's all good. Except for you're taking away family income because you're not so focused on the financial planning practice. And she was dead on with that. I was not totally checked out, but I certainly had my toe out the door at that point.
Yeah.
And she said to me, you either ought to probably start doing more financial planning or figure out a way to make some money with Order of Man. And I'm like, well, option B, I'm making more money with Order of Man.
And that's 6 months in. And at that point, you're doing podcasts.
I may at that point have had a shirt or two. You have one, actually, the Brotherhood shirt, right? You still have that one?
Yeah.
I don't even have that shirt. You should stop wearing that shirt and instead frame that up. I don't think you should sell it to me right now. I think you should wait 10 years.
I have two versions. I have 2 copies.
2 iterations of it. Oh, no, the same shirt?
Same shirt.
Dang. So one's framed, one you wear.
Yep.
While you're watching your private collection of my videos. Got it. Okay.
In my underwear. Yep.
In your underwear. That's better than I was going to say. So that's a step up. All right. So 6 months into this thing, you got the story there. And I was listening to a podcast, and it was on Pat Flynn's podcast. A lot of you guys probably listen to his podcast. Actually, I don't anymore, so I don't even know if he has a podcast, but he's got some great information. And he had a guest on, and the guest was like, oh, you need to do a membership. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll do a membership. And I didn't know anything about it. I was like, I'll do this, a 90-day course. We'll cover it over a period of, so what's that, 12 weeks. So we'll cover one lesson every 2 weeks, and I'll have 6 topics that we'll discuss. And I wrote the 6 topics and nothing else. I'm like, here's the 6 topics. I didn't come up with anything else or any sort of curriculum or videos, none of that fancy stuff. And I reached out on our Facebook group, and I think there was probably something like 1,000 or so guys in the Facebook group at the time. And I said, all right, guys, we're going to do this 12-week course. It's a mastermind. We're going to call it the Iron Council. We're going to cover these 6 topics over 2 weeks. You're going to have access to a private Facebook group, and we're going to get after it. Who wants to join? And I said, I have 12 spots. And we sold the 12 spots like that. And I remember Mark Gablowski, he's still a member of the Iron Council. Yep. He's kind of an honorary member of the Iron Council. I should say it that way, because he still invests in the Iron Council. I just don't see him a whole lot, but I think he just really believes in what we're doing. And I appreciate that level of friendship. And he pops in periodically. I wish he was more active because he's a great contributor, but that's the degree. But I love Mark.
There's lots. Yeah, Mark has lots to offer. Yeah,
tons
he was
to
on
offer.
Echo for a while, and I loved
oh, was he? Yeah, so much to offer. So he was the very first person to ever pay me money outside of maybe a T-shirt for the Iron Council. And I still have the email. In fact, he emailed it to me a year longer ago, and it was the email that I sent to him, and it was like, hey, thanks for believing in me. It was just me, and now there's 2 of us. And it was Mark. Like that. And then I had the other 11 guys sign up. We're having some internet connectivity issues here, Kip. Sorry. So it was me. So I sold that overnight. Me and 11 other guys, or maybe 12 other guys and me. And we did that. And the guys liked it so much. They're like, well, what do we do after this? And then we opened up the Iron Council, and now there's close to 800 members in the Iron Council. So it took about a year and a half to get to the point where I'm like, okay, well, like this is actually something that I could do as a job. And at that point, a year and a half into it, I started to scale back. But look, here's the deal. Like, to help you who's asking the question is, you got to focus on the revenue. Most people won't, because they think, well, I just like it, and it's good, and it's a hobby, and it's fun. That's all great, but that's not at odds with making income. And so where I see most people who are starting businesses fall short is they're so consumed with, I just want to do good. And they overlook the money part of it. You can do more good the more money that you make. And the sooner that you can reconcile the 2 thoughts, which is do good, make lots of money, the more that you're capable and able to do both. Do more good and make more money. So to you who's asking, again, was it Anthony? You're asking this question about this, you got to find a way to sell something. If you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or aspiring business owner, guys, listen to me. If you're not selling something, you're not in business. Yeah. You're not in business. You're in, philanthropic pursuits, charitable work. Nothing against that. If that's what you want to do, then go that route. But if you're trying to start a for-profit business, which is what we are, and I've never made any qualms about that, and I've never apologized about that, and I never will. I want to make as much money as I possibly can doing something that I feel helps society. And the two thoughts are not at odds with each other. In fact, they're complementary. You got to sell something, make something. You talk about all the time, Kip, minimum viable product. Make the minimum viable product you possibly can. It's not going to be perfect. It's probably not going to be pretty. It's not going to be ideal. Just get it out in the world and see if people are resonating with what you have to offer. You're an aspiring business owner. You said it yourself. I don't know if you're selling recipes on the Traeger or how to shoot guns or how to paint or I don't know. I don't know what your thing is, but make the minimum viable product. I'll give you an example. Let me get up here real quick. Hold on. So I did something that I feel like I'm in over my head, but this is one of my goals for the first quarter of 2021 is I'm going to build a canoe.
That's awesome.
From scratch. Like I'm just going to build a canoe. So I jumped online and I spent
old school, like out of
wooden
a log.
Canoe. Yeah. No. Wooden canoe. Yeah. Wooden
Slats.
canoe. Okay. Slat strips. I bought the kit. I got it. So it's not like, I eventually, if I like it, I'll probably move on further from here. So right here, I have the plans for the canoe. And the people that I bought the canoe from, I think it's called, I wish I had it. It's like Bear, I want to give them a plug here real quick. Bear Mountain Canoes. So the people I bought the canoe from, really nice woman. Her name's Joan. I get on the phone with her. I'm like, hey, I have some questions about your canoe kits. And I get on the phone, and she's from Canada, and she's like, here's what we do. Here's the canoe kits. And I'm like, I need everything. Like I need the kit. I need the plans. I need the instructions. I need the children's like coloring book on how to do it. Like I literally need everything on this. And she's like, have you ever done this before? I'm like, no, I've never even remotely attempted. I need like what tools I need. I need everything. And she's like, okay, yeah, we can sell you everything. She was happy to do that, of course, which I was like, good. That's how I want to pay you to sell me everything. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, she doesn't actually have to sell everything. Now, this is their business model, so they do. But she could actually probably make a very lucrative career just teaching dumbasses like me who bought a canoe, who don't know what the hell they're doing, not the plans, but a step-by-step instruction on how to even read these damn things. Because I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I opened them up last night because I got back from my trip, and they got here while I was gone, and I told my wife, I'm like, hon, I'm in over my head on this thing. And she just laughed because she told me not to do it. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't care. She could literally
take. Is this a ship or a canoe?
I'm gonna build a destroyer apparently with all like the manuals and everything that they gave me. I was thinking. So is it? We're off on so many tangents, but this guy's name's Anthony, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Anthony, I was thinking about this as I'm answering your question. It's this easy. There's probably a market for going to Bear River, what is it? Bear Mountain Canoes, okay? There's probably a market of buying their plans and then making a book that actually teaches you how to interpret these things. That's how easy it is.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Wherever there's a pain point that you're interested in, and canoes might not be your thing, and that's fine. But wherever there's a pain point, I'll give you another example. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Because this is important stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's good.
So guns are not new, right? They've been around for, I don't know, hundreds if not thousands of years, right?
Since Adam and Eve, I think. Yeah.
Guns? Guns haven't been around that long. All right. So I had this guy on the podcast. His name's Jeff Gonzalez. Can you see that all right? Jeff Gonzalez.
Yep.
Guns are not new, okay? We've had guns for a very long time. Jeff doesn't make guns. He's not Ruger or Glock. Like, he doesn't manufacture guns. Jeff teaches you how to use them. That's it.
DVD.
On an old, I'm like, dude, bro, really? Like, you don't even need this. I'm like, why don't you just, this is expensive. Bro, just email me the link. I'll pay the $30, but you just email me the link. You don't even need a DVD, okay? It's even easier than this, what you sent me.
But okay. Jeff's in the market. If you go to his website, you can also buy a DVD player.
He's doing
to be able to watch the video.
Yeah, he's like, you can't watch this unless you have a DVD player. That's actually a good point. All right, so he sends me this outdated thing. I don't even know what this is. That's how outdated that is. But he also sends me these. A pack of cards. All right. And on these cards, this is cool. So this is, he calls it Training Card Program. Again, I'm trying to give him a shout out. He was on my podcast, Jeff Gonzalez. Tricon, that's what it is, Tricon. He sends me these cards, and on these cards is 52. It's a deck of cards. It's 52 drills that you can run with your pistol. So I've got pistol, I've got rifle, I've got 3 decks here. Drills that you can run with your pistol and rifle to help you become more efficient with this thing that he doesn't make, called a gun.
Yeah.
It's easy, guys. Just find the pain point. Whatever your thing is, okay? If it's guns, just go into gun communities. Go into a Facebook group, okay? If you're in guns or tactical shooting or survival or whatever, join all the Facebook groups you can. This is gold right here. Write this down, okay? Join all the Facebook groups you can and purge the ones that suck, because there's going to be a lot that aren't good. So get rid of those. And then you just start filtering into the good ones. And then look at what the reoccurring questions are. Hey, Jeff, I've got this gun. What do I do if I don't have any ammunition? I just want to practice training. Write it down. Hey, I'm out here on the range and I'm just wasting all this ammo because I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. Write that down. Write down all the pain points. If you're in the artists, the watercolor painters of America Facebook group, which, by the way, is probably a real Facebook group, actually, if you looked. Okay? Go in there, and the questions are, what kind of paper is the best paper to use? What kind of brush? And how do you do it this way? And how much water ratio to paint? I don't know. I'm making stuff up. But they're going to have questions. And you write all of them down, and then you put together a kit, and it says the 10 things every new watercolor artist needs to know to paint like Bob Ross. I know Bob Ross uses, oil or acrylic or something. He doesn't use watercolor. But you get it. All right, you get it. Go in, figure out where people are struggling, insert yourself between the problem and the solution, and you will win. And you do it monotonously, consistently, over a long and sustained period of time, like I was talking about earlier with one of my talents, and you will win. I promise you, you will win. Well, I think we got through one question so far.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Here we go.
Yeah, we're gonna bust through. We'll get some.
Let's do this,
all right,
guys.
Let's do this.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready. Braden Seal. How do you? All right, start over. Braden Seal.
No, we're leaving that. Leave that, Cody.
Okay.
Leave that. If it makes me look bad, take it out. If it makes Kip look bad, leave it in.
All right. How to understand the difference between what you are doing for yourself and what you are doing to impress others. I argue that no matter the reason, improving yourself is going to be a worthy goal. If impressing someone is the catalyst for you to improve your life, then so be it.
Here's the question. Would you still do that thing if nobody saw it? Would you build a canoe if you didn't get to post it on Instagram?
And tell people. Now, is there a drawback, though, if that is the catalyst? Maybe to initially drive action?
You mean to impress other people?
Yeah.
Like if it drives you to do the right thing. Well, so here's my thought on that. Yeah, I see where you're I like that question. You need to make sure you're impressing the right people. Okay, so for example, I want to impress my children because I want them to see their dad doing big and bold and audacious things and struggling and grinding through it and accomplishing it and then getting beat and then getting back up and then overcoming the thing. I actually am worried what they think about me. You know, there's the popular trope of 0 F's given. It should actually, the full sentence should be 0 F's given for the wrong people. Like, I don't care what the wrong people think of me. But Kip, I think what you think of me is important because we're partners in this, right? Like, I want to show up on time. I want to be prepared. I want to be ready and engaged. I want my enthusiasm and excitement levels to be up. And it's important, not that I impress you, but it is important that I am doing what would hold me in a positive light in your eyes. That's important to me.
We talk about that here, about impacting people and being a good example, which is in essence caring what people think to some extent, the right people.
Right. And Iron Council's the same way. You know, like I probably wouldn't be as accountable or disciplined if I didn't have those eyes on me, if I didn't have you who's listening right now, if I didn't have you listening. And as an example, years ago, I did this Spartanagogie. I got to stop talking about it because it almost feels like it's so long ago. It almost feels like in high school I took state, you know,
in Parowan.
Yeah. But by the way, we didn't take state, so let me just set the record straight on that. But we did better than South Sevier.
Yeah, so. I figured. Yeah. I'm pulling records from the 90s just to confirm.
Where were we going? I can't even remember where I was going.
Oh, Gogi.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was times, guys, that I wanted to quit that thing. It's a 60-hour endurance event. I actually don't even know if Spartan does them anymore. 60-hour endurance event. It was hell. It was miserable. And I almost threw in the towel several times. Like, not like I was thinking about quitting, because that happened all the time, but like seriously considering going to ring that stupid Spartan helmet. And the only thing that kept me from doing it several times was two things. My children, because my wife sent me a text, and in that text there was a picture. And in that picture, she had gone to the grocery store and she had bought poster boards. So she went out of her way to buy poster board. And then my kids, I envisioned them all sitting around the table, taking time away from the other things they could have been doing, and using glitter and special fancy writing, and they wrote things on that poster board like, "Go Dad, we know you can do it, 60 hours." Like, that's what they wrote. And she sent me this picture the night before I was about to go, and I wouldn't talk to her the next morning because we're starting early. And it was then my kids holding up the poster. And I thought to myself, as I wanted to quit, I thought, how big of a loser would I need to be to say, hey, you believed in me, but I let you down? You said to get 60, and I told you I could do it, and I only gave you 20. How big of an asshole would I need to be to do that? And then I had 10,000, I remember, roughly 10,000 guys in the Facebook group at the time, and I said, I'm going to go do this thing, and I'm going to finish. And then I would have to come back, and I would have to say, sorry, guys, I couldn't do it.
Come up with some excuse. Yeah.
Yes. No. That was not happening. And so that's an instance where actually caring about what the right people think about you will actually serve you in a positive way. So I've never, ever once, in fact, to make fun of it, subscribed to the 0 F's mentality. I have actually a lot of F's to give. I just know who to give them to.
Yeah. Now, where's this bad, though? So when is this not good? Other than, because I think you've made that clear, like we should care, it should be for the right people. But when even is it maybe negative for you to want to impress even the right people? Like, is there
yes.
Is there a space in your opinion where it goes south?
Yes, there is. So now we have two different factors, and I'm oversimplifying this just for the sake of this conversation. We have two different factors: what people think of you and what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
And so people a lot of times will ask about, how do I build more confidence? You think better of yourself. But look, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying just be happy with the way you are, because I think that is a stupid, dangerous phrase in ideology.
Yeah.
The way you think better of yourself is doing things that are worth thinking better of. So if you're fat, okay, if you're 100 pounds overweight, you shouldn't feel good about it. Okay, you shouldn't be doing the body positive movement. You shouldn't be dancing around in your underwear. You shouldn't be doing those things because you're celebrating less than you're capable of.
Yeah. And you don't, I don't think they really buy it anyway.
They don't.
I really think in most of those cases, they know they're bullshitting themselves.
This is going to sound really harsh, but I think this is the truth. These are the individuals who kill themselves, and people say, I never saw it coming. Yes, because they're faking it. They're acting. They're pretending like they care about themselves. They're pretending like they feel good. And deep down inside, when they're alone at night and nobody's around, clicking on the like button of them dancing around in their underwear and they're 100 pounds overweight, they think to themselves, I'm a loser, I'm pathetic, I'm a piece of shit. And I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying these are the people who kill themselves. And most people say, that guy was the happiest guy. I never saw it coming. Yeah, because you allowed him to fool himself. Like, we need to care about people more than that. Okay, so you have two things. What other people think, what you think of yourself. What you think of yourself only improves to the degree that you're willing to make yourself better and more capable. Because when you're 100 pounds, I promise you, when you're 100 pounds overweight and you lose 20, you're going to think better of yourself. You're going to. Yep. Because you exercised some restraint. You got up early and moved your body. You did something you didn't want to do. You suffered physically and mentally. And you proved that you could do it. And you're going to feel better about yourself. That's how you build confidence. So again, we come back to this thing. Two factors. Again, I'm oversimplifying. What people think of you, what you think of yourself. Now we know how to think better of yourself. Do the work that you know you should be doing. There's no other way. When those two things are in alignment, it's good and it's healthy. Right? I want Kip to think better of me because I care about him. And I also really want to be a great podcaster. I want to add value. I find meaning and purpose in what I'm doing here. And because I want to impress Kip, and I also want to be a good podcaster, and the two align, it's a healthy thing. If there was no alignment between the way people think of me and what I think of myself, that's where you start to get this unhealthy balance. Like,
yeah, because now you're codependent on me,
right?
Saying, Ryan, you're amazing, even though you're like, I don't feel amazing, and then you just seek it more and more for confirmation that you are.
And also, it could also happen towards things that are actually really good for me. So let me give you an example. Kip, I know that jiu-jitsu is a big part of your life. And let's say I was really focused on making sure that I had your approval, that you thought well of me, but I didn't like jiu-jitsu. I hated it. I despised it. I felt miserable. It wasn't enjoyable. I didn't feel like it served me. And yet I kept going because I want your approval. See how that's bad?
Yeah.
And part of the reason it's bad is because I'm doing something that's not serving me, and all of that time and energy could be directed towards something else. In this context, maybe it could be directed towards becoming a bodybuilder or a strongman, or maybe Muay Thai or boxing. I'm just using this as an example. But I cut myself off from all of that could have served me so much better because I was worried about what you thought. I've done the same thing, man, at times. I've followed people on social media and I'm like, well, that guy's doing this thing, so I need to do that thing. And I was miserable and I kept doing it because I thought that's what you're quote unquote supposed to do. And I wanted this guy to follow me or to like me or to be on my podcast. Yeah. And what a dangerous way to live. What a dangerous way to live.
And what I love about this conversation too is I would even suggest, Ryan, that if you go through the grinder to try to impress me by doing something you don't enjoy, there's a sense of resentment and frustration that you're going to end up having against me.
Totally.
Right? Where you're like, I'm busting my ass. I'm trying to be this. And you know what I mean? I'm not, maybe Kip's not giving me the attention I expected for me doing this thing. And now I wasted all my time trying to appease this individual. And what I like about that is that same thing kind of circles back around about when we talk about being a good example, a lighthouse versus a tugboat. We think, oh, well, we can get people to do things. But when they do it just to appease us, when they do it just to like get us off their back, it's the same thing that we're talking about. They're doing it to impress you, but they're not doing it for themselves, right? And it's going to cause issues even in that example.
You're 100% right. I totally agree with that. I would also say the other thing is that you're actually, if I'm doing things to appease you, you're actually not going to like me anyways.
Yeah.
Because you're going to think I'm a brown noser, or you're going to think I'm a weirdo, or that I'm too clingy or too needy. This applies to romantic relationships, friendships, business partnerships. If I need you and I'm doing everything, Kip, for you, that's actually going to be very, very off-putting to you. It's going to be more attractive, again, romantically or just a friendship or a business partnership. If you know, Kip, here's an interesting way to look at this, especially because we're talking about our dynamic. If you know that I could do this podcast just as well with another co-host, isn't that a good position for both you and me?
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird because we're talking about things that, we don't usually talk about. Like these are conversations that don't usually get had, or we're saying the quiet part out loud. But aren't you better? And aren't I better because I could do this podcast without you? I don't need you here, Kip. I don't need you to do this with me, but I like having you here because you add something to this. Now, instead of feeling like you're in power, you have all the control, it's like reciprocal. And you feel good, you feel wanted because I want you here. I chose you to be on this thing with me.
Yeah, and in your example, it goes from, well, I'm only here because he needs me, versus I'm here and I'm honored that I'm here.
Exactly.
Those are two drastic worlds. And to your point, it's exhausting when someone, quote unquote, needs you.
Yes.
And it lacks, are you ready for it? Lacks
don't say it.
A little bit. But it really does, because you're like, this isn't genuine. Yes. It's not genuine. It's very selfish, really.
Right. That's exactly right. Man, we covered a lot of ground on that one. All right, let's keep going.
Justin Michael, my father-in-law just was diagnosed with tonsil cancer. How do I help my wife cope? How can I help her deal with all the emotions and be there for her? Thank you.
These questions are so hard. First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. That's a bad situation. I don't know the prognosis. I don't know anything about that, frankly. But I'm sure it's a difficult situation. And the hard thing about questions like this is there's no legitimate answer to it. If you did these 5 things, your wife would be appeased and everything would be better. Yeah. Man, it's just not like that. It's not going
to be better, yeah.
The fact that you're asking that question probably means you're doing the right thing because you care. That's the answer. And the fact that you're asking that question, you're not like, how can we get over this? You're saying, how can I help my wife deal with this? Means that you're not thinking about it from your perspective. You're thinking about it from her perspective. That's the nature of your question, which means that you're probably already doing the right things. And it sucks because we as men are problem solvers and you aren't solving the problem. What's the problem? She feels bad. She feels helpless. She feels out of control. She's dealing with her emotions, and there isn't anything that you can do to control all of that. And so as problem solvers, we as men, when we can't solve a problem, how infuriating is that? So let it go, okay? Like that's the answer. Let it go. It's not within your control. Now there are some things. You can be supportive. You can encourage and foster. You can pick up some slack around the house potentially. Maybe you can manage your finances a little better so she can take some time off. There's some things that you can do that I think is low-hanging fruit that you're probably already doing. The rest of it, you just have to let it go, and you have to roll with the punches. I know last week we talked about making this a jiu-jitsu podcast, so I'm going to try to make this as much of a jiu-jitsu podcast as we can. I was training this morning with Brody, and he started to lean one, and I'm trying to think about the scenario, but he started to lean one way, and I trapped his arm and I trapped his leg, and I let him lean, and I just leaned into him. And guess what happened? I swept him, and I ended up on top. Okay? You need to lean into it. You need to roll with it. You don't need to be so rigid. What can I do to fix this situation? Let it go, man. Okay? Be there. Be present. Free up your schedule. Free up your situation. Adapt. Roll when you need to roll. Do those little things that are low-hanging fruit that I'm already sure you're doing. And then just be there. That's it. Just be there and let go a little bit because you can't control it. And no amount of wrestling. In fact, the wrestling for control is only going to make matters worse. It's going to stress her out. It's going to freak her out. And it's going to piss her off. What would you add, Kip? That's my perspective from somebody who has a hard time exhibiting some level of empathy. So I would really appreciate your perspective on this one.
This is coming from the space of I don't have a parent that's passing yet. But I don't know if it's this podcast or another podcast, is probably someone you're interviewing, Ryan, but I heard this analogy of having clear perspective on how much time we have. And my parents are mid-70s. And when I think about my time with them, it isn't that I have 10 years. It's that I have 10 summers. And maybe only 3 visits per summer. And now I get 30 visits. Like, from that perspective, that changes how I visit. And so this may sound a little odd, but I think, Justin, as much as you can do to allow your wife to take advantage of this opportunity. And it sounds weird that I use that term opportunity, but there's an opportunity. And the opportunity is that life and death is very present right now. And the importance of probably your father-in-law's life in your wife's life is really present. And clear the way to allow her to take advantage of that. And maybe spend as much time with him as she possibly can. Create the opportunities where they can connect the best they can and take advantage of the chance that they have.
Agreed. Tough situation, man.
Yeah, super tough. All right, Jordan Fowler, Ryan Mickler, what's something that you're struggling with, something that you don't quite get a grasp on and you need to reach out for help?
My greatest weakness is that I have no weaknesses. It's like an interview question, right?
Yeah.
My greatest struggle is I don't really struggle with anything. It's so easy.
Yeah, I don't know. I take all difficulties and I make them into opportunities. So it's really not a big deal.
I struggle a lot with patience. I actually really struggle. In the business, in parenting, I really, really struggle with patience.
Patience with yourself and the progress and expectation you have on something, or patience
mostly
with
patience with other people.
Yeah.
Because and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, like I grind, man. I just do the work. Like,
and people don't grind. So
it's like, what are you doing? What's your problem? Like, why aren't you going as fast? Why aren't you as capable? Why don't you get this? Why don't you understand this? Let's go. Why is this not your priority? That's super hard for me.
Yeah.
And then I realize, with my kids, for example, like maybe they're doing the best that they can, or maybe you failed to train them. That actually happens a lot, is like I failed to teach them or instruct them the right way. And so of course, how would they, I was yelling at my kids this morning when we were trying to do the store, and I'm like, oh yeah, he doesn't know how to do that part of it, but that was my fault. So I don't know if I've reached out for help necessarily, because sometimes I think we're like so anxious to reach out for help and we don't really need help. We just need to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you agree with that? Like, sometimes I think, well, and I see this in the Facebook group all the time. People pose these questions, and I'm like, well, you already know the answer, right? And guys are like, well, yeah. It's like, well, so what are you doing? You already know the answer to that. And I know the answer to being patient.
Yeah. I struggle with this. I've thought about this a lot. Like, what is the difference? When does someone go from intellectually understanding something and then like, and I don't even know the term for it, but it seems to me that there's a difference between intellectually knowing the answer and getting it. Like,
that's wisdom.
Like, I know. And
that's wisdom.
And I think so. Yeah.
Let me just tell you, and then keep going because I want to hear. But intellectual wisdom is information. You're knowledgeable, but you're not wise.
Yeah.
Okay, wisdom is the next tier. It's being able to apply practical information.
Yeah.
So the only reason we can be wise is because we have experience. Wisdom only comes with experience. That's why a college grad, although they're educated, they aren't wise. They've never applied it. And so they go into this Fortune 500 company and they say, well, we should do it this way. And the guy looks at him like, you're an idiot, because he has 30 years under his belt of wisdom, practical application of knowledge. Anyways, proceed.
Yeah. So, but what I struggle with is I think some guys ask and they might intellectually understand, but they're not bought into it. Like, it's not causing action. I've had moments in my life where literally I intellectually understood something, and then the next moment, like, I was different, not because I did anything. It's just, I comprehended it differently. Like, it changed me. And I wonder sometimes that guys ask those questions, they intellectually know the answer, but they're not connected to it. And they're looking for that level of like confirmation. And I don't know what causes that switch to flip, if that's such a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a weirdness of Kip, but
no, I actually think a lot of guys deal with this. I think you're dead on. So when I was shaking my head, no, I wasn't like, you're wrong. I was like, no, here's what they need. They need a guy who is more action oriented than philosophically oriented, maybe is the right way to say it. To say, get off your ass and just go put it to work, like test it.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of guys who were very intellectual reach out to me, Ryan, how do you start a podcast? You start the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to use this provider. Is that the best? Yeah, it's the best. Well, how do you know? I don't.
Because it's a provider. Yeah.
Like, we were going back to shirts. The shirts that you had, the shirts that you have, that Brotherhood shirt, that's the second iteration. I don't think you have the first Order of Man shirt.
Well, yeah, I've heard about, I mean, you shared the story. Like, the other one, you had to rip off the shelves kind of and burn them.
It's
maybe.
I think one guy, I've seen one floating around. It's a friend. Dave Howard has one. And he wears it every once in a while. And every time I see it, I'm like, I'm going to beat you up, man. You take that shirt off and you throw that shirt away. But it's a reminder. It's actually a good thing. It's a reminder. It's a Gildan shirt, which are the shirts that the city gives you away after you do the 3K, the city 3K for Halloween or whatever. You guys all know what I'm talking about.
Feels like cardboard cotton.
And it's baggy and it doesn't fit right, and you look like a child in it. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And the Order of Man logo's on the front. It's super big and ugly and yellow. Yellow? Like this like weird mustery, like orangish yellow. I'm like, that's the wrong color. Okay, so, but we've evolved. And so this is the process of evolution, is that you have to do it. You don't get to fast forward. You don't get to peek behind curtain C without going through step B. In fact, you don't even know curtain C is there until you go through step B.
Yeah.
So when we have these philosophically oriented people, what they need is somebody who's not philosophically oriented, but is more action oriented. And also, when you have an action oriented guy, and this is why you and I have a good partnership on this podcast and the Iron Council, when you have an action oriented guy like myself, to mix that with somebody who happens to be a little bit more thoughtful, like yourself. That's why this works, right? Because you need to I don't want to say throttle, but it's almost like a governor a little bit. It's like, whoa, hold up. Let's dial this in. I'm like, no, that was like 2 weeks ago. Like, let's go on to this thing now. That's what I need. I recognize that. And so we need each other. Yeah, yes, our partnership and other people. And you'll know this. If you're an overthinker, you know you're an overthinker. So how do you solve it? You stop overthinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's the right thing to do. Right, yeah, you don't. You're exactly right. So you do it and you find out. Yeah. You test it. Oh, what if I lose money? You will. You will. What if I don't do it right? Yeah, you won't actually do it right. But you won't know until you do it.
And one of a phrase that I love, and I don't remember where I got it from, was change your perspective of, instead of trying to be the person that's right, be the person that will find the right answer. And I really like that, because that means, okay, stop thinking, but I'll find the right answer, but it's going to require action and time or whatever. And I'm not going to be hung up on, is this the right way, and thinking too much, right?
Yes. Yes, I understand what you're saying. That's hard for me to even fathom why that's a difficult thing. Because, like, I think about it and I'm like, somebody could come and tell me and say, hey, Ryan, you're going to crash and burn and, like, fall into that fiery pit. And I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be awesome when I do it. You know, it's like, I want to see what will happen. I actually want to see it, me jump off the cliff into the fiery pit. Like, that's going to be that. Like, what a way to go. That's my mentality. So
yeah, which is so
it's hard,
boring, right? Because I'm like, wait, let's map this out. Let's figure out the best approach.
I need no map.
Yeah,
go as hard as you freaking can, as fast as you can, as long as you can, and jump and see if you make it to the other side. And I also acknowledge and recognize that not everything is a fiery pit of death, and very little actually has any sort of long-term, lifelong negative ramifications to your health and prosperity. You know, like, so I was out a couple of $1,000s because we made some shitty t-shirts. And okay, what else? That's it? Okay, like, so what? It's not that big a deal. It's really not. Especially, I had a friend of mine, her name is Renita Parrish, and she used to say something, and I'm paraphrasing, something to the along the lines of, is this going to matter in 3 days? If the answer is no, I mean, I'd even shorten it up. Is this going to matter in 3 hours? Yeah. If the answer is no, then don't worry about it. Just do it. It's fine.
Yeah. I need to work on that stuff, man. I get hung up on things way too easily. All right, one more question. I think this is a good one, man. We have so many good questions.
I know. We only got through
the banter.
2 answers or whatever it was.
I love the banter, but I'm like, man. All right. So Darren Hahn, how do you deal with the darkness inside of oneself?
That's the power, man.
Embrace it.
That's the power. The darkness is the power. Every shitty thing that's happened in my life, I'm better because of it, and I use it. Like, that's the power. Let's take the most horrific thing I could possibly think of. You were raped when you were a child. That's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
That's dark. That's some dark stuff. And I know men who have, a lot of men actually, who have been in that situation. In fact, we had a podcast guest, Tank, came on. He talked. Yep. That's why that podcast did so well. So many of you resonated with. So let's take that. I would say that's pretty dark, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And he sent me message after message after message after message. And he told me about everything that you guys sent to him. He said he had a person that he had known for a while and came up to him and said, and it was a colonel in the military, came up and said, hey, you know, and he served with him because he was in the Marine Corps. And he said, man, I listened to that podcast and you shared some things and I'd never told anybody, but I actually went through the same situation. And I've never told anybody and I've never released it until you shared it on that podcast. That's the power, man. So you could hide it and you could bury it and you could cover it up and not want to address it. And I certainly understand why you'd want to do that. Or you could say, you know what? There is darkness and there is evil and there is pain and suffering. There are dark days and dark times in my life. Everybody's gone through them to varying degrees. And I could cover it all up. Or I could say, yeah, that was bad. And I'm better because of it. And I'm going to serve other people. And I'm going to get lost. I take Tim Ballard with Underground Railroad, Operation Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
That's some dark shit, man. Child sex trafficking? That the fact that that's happening in 2020? That's dark. And who does he get? He gets the baddest ass operators on the planet. And he goes in and he infiltrates these circles and he rescues children. That guy is dark. I guarantee that guy is dark. I guarantee he's dark. I've had him on the podcast. And he was a very kind and friendly person. I guarantee he has some very dark places and corners of his life and some stories and some situations that he hasn't allowed to define him. In fact, well, maybe in a way he's allowed them to define him, but he's crafted it and he's molded it and he's shaped it and he's harnessed it. And the best analogy I can use is he's leashed it, right? He's put it on a leash and now he's in charge, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So you have a couple of choices in dark times. You can wallow in your own self-pity, and I think there's probably a time for that. To mourn and to grieve. I think there's a time for that. And then there's a time to say, okay, all right, now what? What do I do now? And not hide it. That's part of you. Not the pretty part. It's not the fun part. You have those times too. But it is part of you, and you can't get rid of it. And you can't cover it up forever. So use it. Use it.
If we use an example from Goggins taking souls, and I don't think Goggins addresses this in his book, at least I don't remember it. When is taking souls you take it too far, from your opinion? Because and that's like intentionally being dark, right? It's not like, being dark in the moment to actually like accomplish something. Is there a moment where us focusing on that darkness, you feel like serves us in an ill way?
Goggins is dark, man.
Yeah.
He's got a big chip on his shoulder. And he's mad at a lot of things. And he said to me, sitting him, knee to knee, shoulder to shoulder in a hotel room in Las Vegas. He said, it is not easy being Goggins. He's a different breed, man.
Yeah.
And he would look, he talks about it.
Yeah.
He tore himself up physically because of that chip on his shoulder, because he felt like he had something to prove. And he even thought when he was younger that a bunch of people were discriminating against him because he was black. And he's like, yeah, there's maybe 3 assholes. He said something like that. He's like, I thought it was everybody. He's like, there's maybe 3. He's got a very big chip on his shoulder. And in a lot of ways it served him. And in a lot of ways it hasn't. You're going to have struggled relationships, strained relationships, certainly, strained business practices. Like, it's not going to go well. Unless those things are in alignment. Now, we talked about that earlier. There has to be an aligning of factors, which is, this is a bad situation. Here's what I want. Here's what other people think of me or what I think of them. And all of that stuff has to be in alignment. And if it gets out of whack and you start to get too heavily weighted towards one or the other. So I had Shane Dorian on the podcast yesterday I just released. He's a big wave surfer. A lot of you guys listen to it. And I'm thinking about it from this perspective. If you're on a surfboard and you're surfing down a 70-foot wave, which is the biggest wave that he said he had ever surfed. That's insane to think about. So he's surfing down this 70-foot wave. If he gets too heavily planted on his back foot or front foot or left or his right foot, he's dead. Literally dead. And so when you notice yourself going too heavy one way or the other, you adjust, you pivot. Lost your lights there.
I know. Sensor. Hold on. Keep going.
You adjust or you pivot. And so when you're factoring in all these considerations about how to use this darkness, if you're getting too dark and it's actually becoming a detriment and it's actually hurting you or those around you, then you've taken it too far. Yeah. And you got to back up.
And so would you say, put an order of man twist on this, the importance of vision and the importance of after action review of when you are taking souls, if you want to use that term, did it, what went well, what did not go well? How's that alignment with who I am attempting to become as a man and in line with my vision, and then pivot accordingly.
Right. Because that's what keeps you in line. That's what keeps you focused. That's the litmus test, right? So here's this straight line and I'm pursuing this. I'm getting off course. Oh, got to get back on course. Oh, I'm getting off this way. Oh, got to get back on course. And that's your true north. That's your line that you're trying to find. And so when you deviate, like we know it in our religion as the iron rod, right? That's what it is. You hold tight to it. And then when you deviate, you correct it quickly. Because the longer you wait to correct, the further you get away from that path. And so we correct. Oh, got off course, correct. Got off course, correct. How do you correct? Again, I'll go back to our doctrine of the gospel, the iron rod. How do you correct? You pay attention to the doctrine, the scripture, and then you put yourself in an environment that embraces that iron rod. It's the same thing with the jiu-jitsu path. When you start deviating, what do? You go back to class. Or if you're lifting and trying to get healthy and you decide I'm going to eat all the chips and salsa and the bowl of ice cream, okay, that's natural. It's going to happen. And what do? You get back on as quickly as you possibly can. By getting rid of the ice cream out of the house, by finding people who are healthy, by making good choices, and you get back on the path as quickly as you possibly can. You're always going to deviate. If you're on a flight from here, I'm in Maine, to LA, if I just took a singular path and I just hit cruise control, don't adjust, just go, the wind and the forces and the barometric pressure and everything else is going to naturally push me off course. It's going to happen. But the plane is making micro adjustments every second, just little minor adjustments. Oh, adjust. Because if I didn't, I'd be in Oregon or in Mexico before I ever hit LA. Yeah. Got to make those little micro adjustments along the way, according to, like you said, the vision that you have for yourself. That's the true north.
Yeah. And that after action review, I think sometimes we might coast along. Like if you use jiu-jitsu as an example, I might go, well, I'm going to class and I'm training, so I'm on the path. And that's not necessarily true, right?
Yeah.
Of late,
good point.
In particular, I go train and then I'm evaluating how I'm training. Right? Is this style of training serving me well? Is this what's best for me? Is this what's best for my teammates? Should I be more aggressive? Am I being too passive? Do I need to be quicker on the draw? Like, am I just, taking the steps, but not being intentional? You know what I mean? With how I'm training. And I pivoted. Like I've had that conversation with a couple of the guys that I train with, where we look at how we're training, and it's, Marcus. And I was talking to Marcus and I was like, Marcus,
Marcus is that wheat guy that I trained with, or I just kind of just tossed him to and fro, and he kind of just rolled over and tapped every couple of seconds. That's that guy, right? Oh, I lost your connection.
No worries. No, that weak guy. Yeah, that weak guy that wants to keep training with you. I don't know why. Yeah, because you keep running your mouth.
He wants to learn from me. That's what he wants. Show me your ways.
Yeah, but I was talking to Marcus and I was like, hey, Marcus, I'm like, I think we're being too easy on the lower belts. We came up through the ranks and no one ahead of us gave us anything. They never gave us an inch. It was hell. I hated training with half my teammates because I was like, this is going to be so miserable. And I actually think that the next group of us have kind of been a little bit passive aggressive, and we have lower belts that are, to be honest with you, cocky and have some pride. And they're like training, going with this mentality of like, oh yeah, man, I caught you. That was cool. I've never done that before. And we're like, oh, you misunderstand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we're obviously not doing our job humbling you well enough, because you actually do think you're catching people, and you're not. You might be, because I gave you my back because I'm working on something else. And so, so we've had that conversation of like, you know what, guys, we need to lay down the hammer a little bit, because we have some guys like thinking they're all the shit in reality, and there's some pride coming up the ranks, and there needs to be a lot more humility happening.
I agree. I think there's a line though, right? Like there is a line where you just beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And here's where I've been guilty of what I've been guilty of. Sometimes I default to what I'm good at. And so it's like I get a submission and I submit the guy and I'm like that. I know how to do that. Why would I even go for that submission? Like, why would I even do that? I know how to do that. I'm good at that. Like that. I've trained that or extra, it's like, so don't do that. That's not going to help you. And it's not going to help the other guy either, just to pound on him. Okay. Yeah, so, okay. Sure. You got him. And I've been in situations, I'm trying to be a little bit more mature about this as I develop and evolve, is like, okay, I got you. Like, I'm not going to crank on your neck right here. Okay. Like, so I let go before he taps, even though I felt like because it's like, I got it. It's done. Let's just keep training. I don't want to stop. Let's just keep training. Let's just keep going. And I think that's an evolution of maturity, so we all got to get to that point of like, when am I going too hard? When am I going too light? And I think that goes back to what we were saying and your point of the after action is constantly evaluating. So you're evaluating, going too light. Okay. And here's the risk to your adjustment, Kip. Your risk is that you actually go too hard, right? That's the risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you probably will.
Yep.
And then you adjust back. And this is actually what we were talking about. I think it was a couple of weeks ago with the nice guy thing. And guys are like, well, what do you do if you're a nice guy? And I'm like, you actually have to experiment with being an asshole.
Yeah.
You have to play in those waters.
Figure out where that boundary is a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Because you don't know what the line is until you go to either side and realize, oh, too far. And then you find out where that like neutral zone is, the right zone, but you're always figuring out where that boundary is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it.
All right, man.
All right.
Let's wrap it up. Take us home.
Wrap it up. All right. So these questions we filtered from Facebook. Join us, guys. Hop onto Facebook. Go to facebook.com/group/Order of Man. And of course, to join us in the Iron Council, you can learn more about that exclusive brotherhood at orderofmans.com/Iron Council. We started the conversation, I don't know. And I feel like we repeat ourselves every week, but I mean, I don't know. This conversation is so important. So important. Your interview with Tank, the interview that got released today with the big wave surfer. I mean, this is critical. And I think we're in alignment, or Order of a Man's alignment with the American way, right? With not being a victim, taking responsibility, having sovereignty. And one of the best ways that you guys can help spread the word and be part of this movement is by subscribing to the podcast, subscribing to YouTube, sharing the message, and rising up and being that example to people in your families and your communities, and banding with like-minded men. We've also alluded to this as like some of the questions earlier around, you talked about the iron rod and surrounding yourself. Well, that's what the Iron Council is.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
That's what this podcast is for you and I. Despite whoever's listening, it's that way for me, right? Where I reset and I go, you know what? Yes, I'm in alignment. Yes, that supports, the direction in which I need to go. These are the type of men that I need to have around me to shore up where I am weak, but also to help guide me in the direction that's in alignment with my vision of who I need to be as a man. So however you guys see it, band with us, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through the Iron Council, or subscribing and sharing this message, because I think it's more important now than it ever has been, at least in our lifetime.
Definitely. There is one correction I have to make, Kip, to what you said. Yeah. You said that this way of individual, liberty and sovereignty is the American way. It's the man's way.
Yeah, I like it.
It's the man's way.
As I just wrote off all our guys in Australia, UK, and Canada. Sorry,
these guys know. No, these guys who are in the UK and Australia and Canada, wherever, South America. I mean, we're spanning the entire globe. These guys know. that this is not the American way, that this is the man's way. And when men step up this way, we take responsibility, we take accountability, we assert ourselves into the situations which need us. That's not exclusive to this country. That is the phenomenon, I guess you'd say. That is the way of men, frankly, to steal from Jack Donovan. It's the man's way. This is how we do it. So we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're with us. The world needs it. Obviously, America needs it, but the world, the entire world, needs you to step up in the way that you're stepping up. So, Kip, appreciate you, brother. Guys, appreciate you. We'll be back on Friday. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with my children as we were hunting last weekend. So it's going to be a good podcast. So subscribe so you don't miss it, and we'll keep going. All right, guys. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.